So, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for participating this evening. My name is Adrienne Somerville, and we have the most amazing guest tonight, a psychotherapist. Her name is Miss Maureen Leister, and I'll talk a little bit about her background, which her reputation precedes her. Funny story, I had to hunt her down one evening to get her to join us tonight. But before we get started and I let Miss Leister take center stage and also answer all of your questions, I do want to talk a little bit about who we are as individuals, why we're hosting this event. So I am Adrienne Somerville, as I indicated. I am the regional director for the Eagles organization in the DMV space. And I'm also the founder and president of the Carolyn E. Parker Foundation. Both
Uh-oh.
big into enabling the success of others, and we realize having the right and or a good mental space, a mental health space, is very important in this day and time. And so as we gear up for the holidays, which can be an exciting, happy time for many, but certainly not for all, we thought it was great to just pause and let's talk about some of the things that we know plague many of us at different peaks in terms of our lives. So let me introduce our amazing speaker, and I'm so grateful, Miss Maureen, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening. I want to talk a little bit about your background because, as I said earlier, I had to hunt her down and seek her out because she's definitely a renowned leader in the industry. So Virginia Tech graduate, she has a bachelor's degree there. She did a lot of science in terms of health and services and social research. She also has an MA from the one and only Syracuse University. Believe it or not, as we gear up for Veterans Day, another reason why she's also amazing, 10 years as an Air Force leader. She was an officer in the Air Force, licensed counselor in the state of Virginia, of course, since 1998. She practices in Virginia. And she also is an amazing mom who adopted multiracial children. And so she has a very diverse family. For grown children, you know, they're never really grown, but adult children. But so needless to say, her reputation precedes her. She's traveled the world with the military and also beyond in terms of her profession. And so I'm just honored and humbled to have you join us tonight and to talk a lot about mental health and the world in which we live in and its value and its importance. So before I get into some of the questions I have, I want to let the listeners and the viewers know tonight, we will be monitoring the questions, so feel free to engage. But more importantly, I want to just take the time to just ask Maureen, why do you think it's so important in this day and time to have these kinds of safe, open talks, if you will, about mental health and wellness?
Great question. I think for a long time, people ignored aspects of mental health. It was either you were crazy or what you were going through was just your personal experience. And what we've finally kind of let out of the closet is that we all have emotions. We all have reactions. We all have social engagement. We all have issues that we struggle with. And especially this became very, very important during the pandemic when suddenly people realized, wow, I am here by myself in my home. I can't connect with people. I don't feel so good. Is it okay to talk about it? And I was thrilled when finally people step forward and say, is this okay to have these feelings? And what do I do about it? I want to change some of them. How do I do it? So in this day and age, finally, it's kind of like, ta-da, we let it out on center stage and we get a chance to deal with it instead of making people feel bad because they might have depression or anxiety or ADHD or be on the spectrum or be struggling with a transition in their life or a loss. Now we can talk about it. And, I'm here to help you understand maybe some of the ways best to cope and to deal with whatever your issue might be. I can't address them specifically, obviously, but I can give you some ideas of which way to look. And, kind of get some ideas also on uh, feeling okay about yourself because you do have um, something going on. And nothing is going to be so much that we can't figure it out one way or the other. That doesn't mean it's a instant solve. It means that um, we can help you work towards uh, engaging in a better way with the world and yourself, feeling good about yourself again.
Well, thank you for that. So you touched on two things that I'm very interested in, and I know a lot of people are, because I just had this conversation about 4 o'clock today with my daughter. So there's a lot of conversation about anxiety
Hmm.
and then depression. And so I just thought for years, like it seems like this era, I don't even want to say it's a generation, but this era, you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm having anxiety, I'm anxious." And I wondered, like, maybe people, like you said, didn't talk about it before, but what really is the difference between like being anxious and having anxiety versus like being depressed?
Okay. Wow. They're on, well, anxiety itself is like on a spectrum. You're going to see that there are different things on the spectrum, including things like post-traumatic stress syndrome. Not everybody who has anxiety has that. Not everybody has panic disorder. Um, you can be nervous. You can be somebody that's a bit of a hypochondriac. That's on this spectrum
Mhm,
too.
mhm,
Um, this is where you have a physiological reaction to things. So the physiological reaction you have when you have anxiety is that, your heart starts to pound faster, your breath starts to come faster, you start to feel, yourself getting worked up, maybe your muscles tense up,
shortness
maybe
of
your hands
breath.
get a little calm. The whole thing starts. Now, you're looking at that. That's anxiety, but it also can be excitement.
Yeah. And some of that could be normal, right? Like you should be.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So you can have a situation that comes up where you're going to step up and win an award. And of
Mhm.
course, you're going to sit there and you're standing backstage and you're, and you're sweaty and you're going, oh my gosh, I should have put on better deodorant. You're a little panicky, and you get up there, and the minute you make contact with the person and begin to focus on, what they're saying, and you just let yourself feel all right. You're
Mhm.
still adrenaline is still flowing, but it's no longer fearful.
Yeah.
It is now just, "Oh, this is great. This is
Yeah.
wonderful. Oh, my mom would be so proud,"
Right.
the thing. Now, let's look at that compared to depression.
Mhm.
With depression, oftentimes everything slows down.
Okay.
And so you're not going to have this really fast breathing. It's going to be the opposite. All of a sudden, you're like, and
Yeah.
depression can also be, we have a spectrum on that too. We have people
Mhm.
that have major depressive disorder where they can barely get out of bed. They're
Mhm.
not moving. When I see someone like that now, right now, I do telehealth, but prior to the pandemic, I did everything in office, and people would come into my office, and when they come in, they would just look like they melted into the furniture.
Oh wow.
Everything was down,
Heavy, very heavy.
very.
Mhm.
And it's like, whoa, how did they manage to move? And it feels heavy to them, like they're dragging along.
Right.
The breathing is slower and everything's an effort. And it's like, oh, and you have a real tendency when you have depression to go inward.
Mm,
Everything is in here, and I'm closing down, and
right.
everything is, it's awful. It's
Isolating
awful.
yourself
Yeah.
and very reflective.
That's usually what I'm looking for when somebody's saying, "How am I feeling?" I'm going to be asking, "Well, are you getting out with people?
Hmm.
Are you talking? Are you going to work? Are you, you know?" When I have people with anxiety, if they're not going to work, it's because they're totally freaked out.
Right.
They're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't find my keys. I don't know what's going
Right.
on. Oh, I'm supposed to turn in this report. It's not done." You know, do you see the difference?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
not everyone that has a depressive episode is going to have a major depressive episode.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
can be depressed. Um, you have a student and a student doesn't do well on a test. They studied and studied and they got back a D. And they're like, yes, they're going to feel down. They're going to be sighing. You can tell by their posture, everything
Right.
starts to kind of float down, but they're not into that major depressive place.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be dragging for a while, and it's like, ugh. And then usually the self talk is really awful. The self talk is like, I suck. I can't study. I don't know how to do this. What's wrong with me? I shouldn't be doing this at all. Why am I going to college? Why am I doing that? It's those very things that kind of create that downward spiral.
Mm-hmm. That
I'm not
negative
saying
speak.
it can't evolve into something worse, but for the most part, most people have those depressive episodes, and they're short. They're much shorter. Um,
It's
Anxiety
interesting.
is the opposite. Pardon me, I lost your sound.
Embrace the adrenaline, right? That anxiousness is how you go from good to great. And so when they say things like that, it's, people are really getting amped up about the anxiety of it all. And so then when people say I'm anxious, some of us are like, yeah, that's what you need. Like that's what you needed to fuel yourself. And then others go, well, anxiety is a bad thing. So it sounds like it could be an ally at times when it's manageable and it's not enduring. And the same thing for depression. Like it's normal to feel sad that you didn't present well or sad that you, for whatever reason, didn't actually do well in terms of that test.
Right. So you don't want to take it as the be all and the end all. With anxiety, one of the things that comes up often is um, anxiety often comes because we're projecting out. We are
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, oh my gosh, it's, Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks and I haven't even got the invitations out. Where can I find the bird? I'm not even sure where we're going to go. Maybe I should host, maybe not. It's a little late, but what am I going to do? And the more we think about everything out there, and it's like, my mother's going to be so disappointed. And I can just picture my sister with the scowl on her face. And, we start going those directions. We're becoming more and more, oh, hello,
Hello
anxious
there.
as we go along. Um, and the anxiety ramps up. I'm going to tell you that there's a big overlay with people that also have ADHD or
Yeah, let's talk about that.
and here's one of the things that happens with ADHD. When we have ADHD, it's not that we can't focus, we're just not necessarily focused on what we need to be focused on to produce a grade or to produce one thing. This is the typical ADHD person, is the person that, okay, I'm going to go in to do the dishes. I didn't really want to do them. I put it off, and it's like, oh no, I can see him from around the corner. All right, I'm going in there. Oh, on the way I go, there's my car keys. I need to go put those back in my bedroom. So I pick up my car keys, I take my car keys, I set them down. And then I pet the cat because the cat's there on the bed. And then as I'm leaving, I adjust the drapes. And then as I'm wandering out, out of the room, somebody calls me on the phone. Now I'm on the phone. Now I'm, going, oh yeah, I've got that. I run into my office. So I grab the stuff out of my office and I start going through that. You know, as I'm walking back a couple hours later and I walk past the dishes, I'm like, wasn't I supposed to get those done? Wasn't I going to do that? We are all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult to pull it together. So when we're anxious about something, we often can feed each of those little side things. Oh my gosh, I forgot to take the cat to the vet. It needs its checkup. Oh, daggone it, I should have turned in that paperwork. We're
Mm-hmm.
doing this. And it's hard to get on track. with
That
it.
sounds extremely stressful. I know, I think I probably have a little bit of that too. Especially as I get older with more responsibility, it's one of those things where I can't. Well, multitasking, just for everyone's benefit tonight, it used to be a good thing. When you interview, you say I'm a multitasker. Then I later learned in life, no, there's really no such thing, right? You can barely do them sequentially, let alone concurrently, without not fully doing one or the other is what I would say. But I do find myself easily like I cannot try to leave my house and also be on a call because I think I've told Michael that too, and Michael, feel free to chime in here. Um, yeah, I'm like, inevitably something is missed, something's left, something's forgotten. So I
Mhm.
find myself with my head racing miles ahead of what I need to be preparing to do and trying to be present in terms of exiting and doing the things that it takes to get to doing those things. Yeah, I find myself, I don't want to say spiraling, but easily having a bunch of different things in my head to try to do. And then you inadvertently go, like you said, I was supposed to put that glass in the dishwasher. I guess I forgot to do that on my way out the door. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it's nice that people can be safe in that space and say, I do some work with the lady and she admits it. Because she does maybe appear a little scattered sometimes.
Mhm.
Her words, not mine, but then she'll say, I have ADHD. So like, kind of give me a little grace, kind of bear with me. And so then you just try to, so this is a good question. How do you um, be comforting so people that you work with that have ADHD know it's okay? How do you adjust so you can meet people where they are? Because we want to be able to work with all kinds of people.
First off, remember that you can only do one thing at a time.
Mhm.
Let's focus on this. And frequently, I'm telling people, okay, let's get back to this. Now, I'm really good at going. If you're going off on a tangent and it's a good one, I'm with you.
Right.
But but frequently, it's like, okay, we have to get this done. So let's get back on task. Let's refocus. And one of the big things that we all have to learn if you're dealing with, for instance, with ADHD, is this is not about shaming somebody. This is
Mhm.
not about saying, I can't believe you're doing this again. Why didn't you handle that the right way? Didn't you tell me you were going to put that in the dishwasher? What's wrong
Mhm.
with you? Um, when you have that kind of shaming language, the ADHD person is internalizing it. And one of the things you want we go back to overall mental health, is that you begin to go, I'm doing the best I can, and it's
Mhm.
okay. I will get there. Not always on a straight line, but I will
Right.
get there.
And that
So,
line varies for people anyway, right?
very much so. Very
Mhm.
much so. It's not about we got to be first, we got to be the best, we got to be. What are you? Where are you? What are you
Mhm.
working on? What are you learning? What have you discovered? And some people are very blessed with ADHD where they have hyperfocus. I'd say about 2/3 of the people that have ADHD have hyperfocus. And on hyperfocus, as I described it to a dad one time, I said, this is like if your child is into something and the house is burning down, you'd better come in and save him because he is
Mhm.
not going to move. And strangely enough, the father said, that's exactly what happened yesterday. I left a pizza box in the oven, turned the oven on this morning to preheat, went outside for a minute with the other kids. My child was sitting there doing his math homework, and all of a sudden the smoke is flowing out the door, and he's still doing his math homework because he finally figured it out. That was where his focus was,
Wow.
and he was locked in. So
Wow.
it's not, again, don't think about intention. What this child was not going, well, it's dad's problem, it's not mine. No,
Right.
as a matter of fact, when dad came in, dad said, What's going on? Where's the smoke coming from?" And the child looked up and goes, "Dad, there's smoke in the kitchen. What's happening?" And no clue, because it was like, yay, I figured out the math. So
Mm,
that kind of hyper focus is great if it happens to be in subjects that are going to help you in school. It's not so
mhm.
great if what it is in something that is outside of school and it keeps taking away your focus from what you need to get done and turned in for classwork, for instance, or on the job. The same thing can happen.
Right.
Hopefully, you're in a job that if you have hyper focus, that is one of your strengths. That they say, we'll give this to you, and we don't know how you get there, but we give you a date and it shows up. Now, working with some of those people that I do, they will always tell me, I'm all over the place with it for the first 3 months I'm working on the project, but I know when it's due. And the last week of the project, I just crank it out and it all comes together. I'm in it.
Mhm.
That's the hyper focus. The other part is very scattered, but it also is something that I pull in and then I move forward. Annoys the heck out of everybody else.
Yeah, that's
That's
my first time. That's to me good. Well, it's interesting news. I've never heard of the hyper focus because you always think of ADHD as really trying to concentrate, but have a lot of things going on. That was my first time, or tonight was my first time hearing that you can actually be laser focused on something and have ADHD, hyper focused.
Mhm.
Huh. And you said
If
that's a
a
small
hyper
percentage,
focus,
Maureen, of the people?
no, that's probably about 2/3 of ADHD people.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Okay.
the greater. Now, I'm going to tell you, all ADHD people are going for dopamine, and dopamine is the pleasure piece, and
Mm,
that's the uh, part of the brain that is telling you, oh, this is good, this is pleasurable, love it, this is so much fun. So when you have a child, for instance, or an adult, I have adults too, that get into electronics that constantly, oh, I'm up at this level, I got this, I won that, and they're getting that little hit of dopamine. You want to see hyperfocus? Try to peel your
mm,
child off for supper time. Whoa,
mhm.
they are really struggling to detach from it because it's giving them that dopamine that they're craving. Usually people with hyperfocus in a more functional area, maybe a subject in school or something, um,
Mhm.
they are getting that response from really being into the math or the science or the
Yeah.
history or writing a paper for them or whatever it is. It works for them.
Hi, Maureen. I just have a quick question, just very quickly. You know,
Sure.
I'm just wondering, what did we do for ADHD 100 years ago? I mean,
Okay.
right now I
First
know
off,
they take drugs, right? But what 100 years, what 200 years ago?
what typically was going on was you didn't go to school. You were not
Mhm.
the kids that were sent to school. You were the
Mhm,
kids, and I had somebody that said, this kid works great in the field because he'll drive the tractor all day long.
mhm,
That's his thing. He loves it. He's great at it. This is how he handles it. Um,
Mm.
so you got put into a task that you might excel in, but if it wasn't in reading or writing, or that didn't catch your interest, or you were doing this all over the place, um, and you couldn't focus, you often got left out.
What about
So, and
adults?
as
If you made it to
oh,
adulthood, it was probably hard to keep a
remember,
job.
we a lot of jobs that turn of the last century were working machines, and it was
Mhm.
repetitive. And so you would find a lot of people that would, oh my gosh, they'd get burned out, they'd get hurt, they'd volunteer for all kinds of stuff so that they
Mhm.
could do something different. Others, it was like they became the machinists and they could take the
Ah,
machines apart, put the machines together. You know, um, they would do the risky work Why? Because that gave them that dopamine rush. Oh,
Dopamine.
we're painting the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm up there, you know. So you're self-selecting for these different kinds of roles, which were not necessarily safe, healthy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was suited for you. You know, who are the people that actually got on the ships and came over? You
Hmm.
know, who are the risk takers? The risk takers are very often the ADHD people. They they go for, and think about it, if you have an ADHD child, I could tell you many things my children did growing up that, oh, shoot, even one of them as an adult, um, that were a little risky. It's like, I thought I could do it, you know, and it, despite, um, the facts outside. In the moment, that's what they're focused on. Looks good to me. I think I can do it. I got it. No,
Hmm.
I don't.
Yeah.
And then you have your issue.
Mhm. How do you, so
Long
I
answer.
think what, well, no, that's a good, thank you for that. A great response. How do people check in? I know it's mental health is so important as an individual, and then as a, in terms of your relationships, right? Being whole, being present, being intentional. How do we self-assess, or how do I check in terms of like, am I okay? You hear that being a big thing, of course, since the princess kind of Meghan Markle made that like statement in New York when someone asked her if she was okay. How do we self-assess or check in with ourselves to assess whether we're okay, and if we're not, to change the course for that day, if not for the trajectory, but at least for the moment? Like, what tools can we employ, or
There's
what
some
practices?
really basic things. Um, do I like myself?
Hmm.
It's like, no, I don't. I don't like who I am. I don't like what I do. I don't like where I'm at. And when I hear that, am I motivated to go, you know what? I could go and do XYZ? Or am I just like, yeah, I don't deserve it? Ooh, that's not good.
Right.
So you recognizing there may be things here that are not really positive
Hmm.
about me, things I might want to change, but I'm okay in general with who I am or what I do. I will tell you that looking at, am I happy all the time? No. But what am I doing and when do I experience happiness? And
Right.
happiness comes mostly when your belief systems match your behaviors. So if you believe that you should and you can um, maybe attend church, and you think that I need to be attending church, it feeds my soul and I feel good after I go to church and I'm going to participate in the service and all this, and I don't go week after week, I don't feel
Hmm.
so good. And I don't feel like I'm meeting my own needs. Now I pick something kind of different, but it can also be things like how I handle my money. Um,
Hmm.
do I need to go forward in to helping feed the hungry? And if so, it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be I'm the one that makes sure that I get my kids fed. You
Right.
know, uh, if my beliefs match my behavior, that's going to lead
Mm,
towards my happiness.
that's good. If my beliefs match my behaviors. That's, I'll have to
Yeah.
self-assess. I'll have to self-assess myself. In all areas, do my beliefs. I think there's some improvement there. Let's just say I'm happier more times than others about certain areas. I can't say I'm always happy in each and every one of those areas. But I like that litmus test of if my beliefs match my behaviors. Okay, I like that.
But what
Were
about?
you about to say something, Michael?
I was just wondering, what about for people who are like who are lost and in despair? How do they assess themselves? Say, for example, someone is just like, my girlfriend just left me. Remember, Adrian in that high school where the teenager shot somebody. Great Mills
Yeah.
High School, you're in despair. Somebody, the love of my life just left me, and I don't know what to do. I want to jump off the bridge. How do they kind of turn that situation around? Where they're heartache, they can't sleep, they
Well,
can't eat.
first off, I wouldn't if and you're talking about somebody that's a teenager.
Well, in this case, it was a teenager. It could be me. It could be my next door neighbor.
Okay. Right. Right. And I've had situations where people have lost somebody. Somebody shot their partner, their friend.
Mm-hmm.
They had somebody that was taken out of their school. There's a reason why we do some group work, why we go out and ask people, so what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Within schools, there for a long time, they were showing the films related to Columbine and how people were coping. And what it did was it opened up the conversation so that people could talk
Mm-hmm.
and people could share what was going on for them. A big piece about it is not to hold it in and think you're the only person
Mm-hmm.
that was affected. You know,
Yeah.
when we share those things, we get past them. One of the things that we do, I see a lot of veterans, and a lot of them come to me for individual following being in group
Mm-hmm.
therapy over at the VA. And, finding out I'm not the only one. And
Mm-hmm.
this feels different, and how do I go forward with this? And then there's little pieces that kind of break off. But a lot of times feeling and hearing and understanding what is happening for other people is super helpful. We use the same kind of principle with NA and AA programs.
Mm.
Uh,
Kind of like group therapy.
being open,
Mm-hmm.
being upfront.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's when you start in a school, it's usually small groups, and usually you have unwilling participants at first, because everybody's like, not going to talk about it, can't talk about it, and
Yeah.
so you have somebody come and they kind of lead things through, and then people sort their feelings out, and not taking everything personally.
Yeah.
That person, I didn't have control over what happened to that person.
Right.
I witnessed it. I have feelings about what happened. I have feelings because I lost that person, but I am not responsible for what happened. And that happens a lot with people that think if I was just there 5 minutes earlier, it would have been me instead of them. And that's not true. We all think that we can fix something that way, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I just want to also acknowledge we have Mr. Jack Jackson, who actually founder of the Eagles organization on the call with us. So Jack, anytime you want to chime in and ask a question or make a comment, please feel free to do so as well.
All right, pretty, thank you. I'll just be paying attention right now.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to just kind of inquire into or make a comment about what you just said, Maureen, and Michael Michael hears this a lot, is telling ourselves a story, because we have the tendency to do that. We'll just tell ourselves a narrative. Our story becomes our reality, and we're off in the wild with it. And oftentimes, emotionally, we get tied to that narrative. When we really get to the bottom of it, sometimes, and in many instances, Michael will attest to this, it's really not the case. So that helps me. That's kind of one of my tests, if you will, kind of my litmus test is, am I telling myself a story about what's reality and what's not? And then the ability to say, well, I don't really have any facts to kind of corroborate that. So I'll talk myself out of the fact that it could easily be the antithesis of what I'm thinking. And so my ability to pull back from that is something I've learned to develop. That kind of came with a little bit of maturity, I might add, too. Not when I was younger, that's for sure. That's for sure.
I want to make a comment about that. Because you said one thing that is so important nowadays. We have incredible social media, but we also have a real struggle for many people to separate fact from opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
I get people all the time coming in and saying, I saw this on and it said this, and therefore it's truth. And it's like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
what's the research? What's the background? Who said it?
Mm-hmm.
Who corroborated it? If it's a reliable news source, usually they have to have corroborated evidence.
Mm-hmm.
We had a few things that happened during a previous presidency where most things weren't corroborated. It was just what did I feel like in the moment? Again, opinion is opinion. It is not necessarily fact. And so if I go in and I ask somebody my opinion about what they saw, what happened, I have to remember it's theirs, it's not mine. And they
Yeah.
can, it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I often have people when I'm trying to get them to bring their anxiety down or to come out of depression, we look at what the facts are,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
what the opinions are. What's the
Mm-hmm.
fact? Oh, you're still employed. You're showing up every day. Yeah, well, I'm not doing as good as I can, but you're showing up and you're getting your hours in and they're paying you and you're not getting disciplined. And, so that their self-reflection begins to be, wow, what's different about my reality? You know?
Right.
And so fact versus opinion is important. Staying grounded. And nowadays, that's a big thing when it comes to wellness. And grounding is very much looking at what is happening here and now and in this moment,
Mhm.
not outside. So if we're in our house and we're having a discussion, what is happening here? I don't need to know what your mother thought about this. I need to know what you feel, what you're
Mhm.
thinking. We're having a discussion. What facts do we have to do? If I'm talking to my child, we have homework we have to get finished. When does it have to be done? How much is it? Not, well, so and so has his mother do it, or such and such is going here. No,
Mhm.
we stick to fact as we go along. And when we stick to fact and we problem solve, which is a biggie, problem solving keeps us up here as
Mm.
opposed to stuck here. And our feelings are not running away with us anymore. That doesn't mean we don't have feelings about it, but it means in the moment I can work on something by thinking it through. And I want you to think about this like we have an emergency. You're driving along and you see a car accident and there's not a lot of vehicles around. So you pull over, you call 911, and then you get out to help. You're not sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe there's this horrible accident. You're just going, here's the facts. Here's what I saw.
Mhm.
Here's what's happening. Here's the number on the car. Here's where I'm at. You get up, you go over. You're like, oh, shoot, I'll take off my jacket and stop the bleeding. I'm talking to the person. I'm trying to keep them calm.
Mhm.
I am doing things based on what I can think through. Later, I may have a very strong emotional reaction about it, especially if somebody has passed.
So it
But
sounds like, Maureen, though, these are skills that you have to develop, right? So how do
very
you
much.
get started? Like, how do you start to develop and practice these skills? It seems like, I mean, these are things that you do get once you practice. You get to a level of maturity or ability to do them.
I think the first thing is to recognize, I often ask people to move from emotion to thought, especially if they're very, very anxious.
Mhm.
Um, we don't talk about if somebody comes into my office and they're having a panic attack. I don't sit there and go, oh my God, what are you panicking about? How awful is it? Is it going to happen? It's like, first thing I say to them is have a seat. Do you want to sit there? Or do you want to sit there?
Mhm.
I am beginning to model for them how to distract themselves. and to bring themselves down so that I can go back and think about what I was upset about. Think, not feel, think. I already got feeling down. I'm panicking. I'm going to go back and think. So when we first are getting into something, depending on what it is, a very first thing I would say is, what are the facts? What are the facts that you know about this? The other thing I would say is it my issue or is it somebody else's issue? Because if I'm picking up everybody else's work and have all kinds of opinions about it, ready to jump on it, we're not getting anything done. Right? That's like somebody coming in and telling you how to rearrange your office and what you should be doing. We call them micromanagers. Doesn't matter whether it's your parents or it's your supervisor. You're ready to shoot them. You want to begin to, sit down and ground yourself to, is this my issue? If it's my issue, I'll deal with it. If it's not my circus, not my monkeys, I leave. I'm not going to go there. That doesn't mean it's not an issue for somebody else, but I don't have to take on everybody's issue.
Maureen, I'm just
So
curious.
the first thing again,
Do you use these skills with your children?
I try. They've all achieved adulthood. So I would say, you've had some success there. So they often told me, Mom, you don't know what you're talking about, as I was growing up. But yes, they know. Because they would come home. My kids were the kids that would come home with everybody else's issues. I'd be like, it's not yours. But Mom, it's like, he's going to talk to his mom about that. Not, you can't, I can't go in there and fix it for him. This is theirs. So here's what you can do as a friend. Go from there.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. You talk these, I guess, skills that we're referencing, I think are good skills. You and I talked about helping people get through situations, but more importantly, how do you grow in terms of getting through situations? I've been doing this it's actually called positive intelligence, but it's kind of a psychological mind shift, a paradigm shift in terms, you'll hear people talk about saboteurs and the sage aspect of your mind and the conflict that you're always in, and remaining positive and having positive thoughts and positive speak. It's a challenge for a lot of people. I mean, it is. It sounds good, but it is a challenge. What do you think, or how do you recommend people? I mean, other than, I know you just start doing it, practicing it. I know people that put Post-it notes on their walls. And I really think about the holidays, because people will find themselves, many will be very happy and celebratory, but even in the midst of a celebration, I think some people will find sadness. But how do you, remain like positive and, not, necessarily, even if it's not happy, but at least content and feeling good about who you are when you're facing some of these dark hours or dark challenges or holidays that just aren't what they seem to be for most people when you're comparing yourself. Because comparing is also, I think, something that I tell my daughter, we all need to work on let's not compare ourselves to other people. I don't do that, but I know there are a lot of people with social media that find themselves doing that.
Well, in not comparing ourselves, in being ourselves, it's like, again, this is working on liking yourself, being okay with yourself. Most of us have all gone through stages. We didn't like our facial features. We didn't like parts of our body. We don't like whether we have hair, we don't have hair. We wear glasses, we don't wear glasses. We all find something that we can be agitated about. But that's ours. And it's like what goes with anxiety is often people go, oh, everybody knows what's going through my head. They're looking at me. They're seeing this. No, they're not. Why? Because they're looking at their own stuff.
Like an episode of Carrie.
And that's what we have to remember.
Laugh at you, and no one's laughing at you. Yeah.
No, everybody's doing their own thing. And that's that's one thing I frequently tell people. It's like you get up there on stage. I remember my daughter was. I have a daughter that's a dentist. When she was going through dental school at the very beginning, they had to all pull kind of names out of a hat, and it was a medication that they each had to present to the class. So they were put into small groups and they had to get up there. And she's like, I don't want to speak up in front of everybody. This is, here we are, and I'm with all these people that are, top of their class kind of thing. She's so nervous. And I'm just like, okay, first off, when you get up there, and you're watching, or when you're sitting in the audience, does everybody have to do this? Yeah. Are you doing it for like the president of the university? Who are you doing it for? Oh, the professor. You see him all the time, right? And the other students. Okay. So when you get up there and you're giving your presentation, you alone? You with? Oh, I'm with a group. I'm going, all right. So whether you're in the audience or you're up front, everybody has to give this sooner or later. What are you thinking about when you're watching somebody else? And we started talking about that. It was like, oh man, they had really good slides, or, oh, golly, I need to get my nails done? Or, sometimes they get a few words there. I hope they have a good handout because I am so bored. I'm going to be breaking for supper. I said, are any of them really into how you're feeling or what you're thinking in the moment? She's like, I know I'm not. I'm like, they're not either. And then she goes, uh-oh. So what happens after I give the presentation? I said, what do you mean? She said, oh, I have to have, I get more points if somebody asks questions. And I said, oh, okay. Here's how we do that. I said, do you have any friends in the audience? I said, just have them agree ahead of time what they're going to ask you about so you will know the answer, and have two people. And you do it for them when they come up. So you will have two questions answered. So now she's not afraid to answer if somebody asks her a question. She knows what's going on. And it's like, okay, I can do this. After I gave her this whole breakdown, I asked her, by the way, what medicine do you have to talk about? Viagra. And I'm like, of all the things that you've got to present, you weren't worried about that.
You definitely want to have an ally if that's what you're going to be talking about.
Yeah. I said, more people would be like, what? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's hilarious.
I do have a question for you. For you all mentioned earlier about the holidays. I think Adrian said something about the holidays, and a lot of times, people get depressed during the holidays, and we have Thanksgiving coming up, and we have Christmas coming up, and some people are even depressed the whole year long. I mean, all around. And I'm just curious of what you have to say in regards to what can an ally or what can I do to help someone that is going through depression, um, or maybe I think that they may be depressed. How can I help them to kind of get out of that rut? Because folks with depression, they cry
Yeah.
uncontrollably sometimes, or they stay locked in their room. They want to be isolated, or they eat their way out of depression. So what can I do to help, to kind of try and help them get better without having any of the education that you may have or skills?
Getting somebody to, spend time with you,
Hmm.
because a lot of times they self-isolate. So if you spend time with them, if you spend time doing something that maybe the two of you both like. I know my mom, after my dad passed, my mom would get very depressed at times. And then it would be, well, Mom, let's go to, we have a market that they put on, a big Christmas market. We've
Hmm.
always liked to go. And it's like, so Mom, how about you go with us. We want to take you.
Mhm.
No, you'll be dragging me around. I'd have to be in the wheelchair, and it's going to be miserable. I'll be like, no,
Yeah.
no. Look at it this way, Mom. First off, you have what you call the GIMP sticker, right? The handicap sticker. We're going to park up close. And
Mhm.
then you have the wheelchair, and it's like a battering ram. We can get through all the aisles of people, and we're hooking
In front of the line.
everything we buy on it. I said, you're the prize, Mom. We want you to come with us. And so I could get her to think about it in a different way. And she'd be like,
Mhm.
really? I'm like, you wait. We'll have bags all hanging off the back end of the wheelchair. And um, so to get her to shift her thinking, to
Yeah.
spend time with you, to get out, and because otherwise the thinking tends to be very circular, and we go round and round and round. And it's like to get somebody to get up, get out, if they'll go for a walk with you, if
Mhm.
they'll play a board game with you, if they aren't capable of really getting up and moving far, they'll play a
Mhm.
board game. They'll do an interchange with you. The other piece is, remember the positive self-talk that she was talking about.
Mhm.
That is huge for dealing with depression and anxiety.
Mhm.
You begin to talk to yourself in a positive way.
Mhm.
You don't say, oh my gosh, I used to be, like you're dealing with somebody that's has eaten themselves into obesity. Oh, I used to
Mhm.
be so such and such. It's like,
Right.
that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're
Mhm.
talking about is, I'm glad you're here.
Right.
I'm glad we got to spend time together. You're still
Mhm.
who you are.
Right.
We'll deal with the rest later. Come on. And so we're engaging them in a positive way. We're letting
Mhm.
them know we care. We want you to be there with us. And, come on. Let's get up, get moving. Movement is essential for so many things. Physical movement.
Mhm.
If you have somebody that's on the spectrum, if you have somebody that's ADHD, if somebody that's depressed, if you have somebody that's anxious, it does a little bit different thing for each person,
Mhm.
but it is really good at helping balance the body back out, getting you
Mau-
up and going, getting forward motion.
Maureen, I hear that term a lot, like on the spectrum. I don't know if everyone understands, if our viewers and listeners tonight, what does that really mean when someone says, oh, so and so's on the spectrum?
We have the way that we identify autism nowadays
Yeah.
is to be on the spectrum. And
Mhm.
it can be from one end, which can be very profound, where someone is not communicating through
Nonverbal.
speech,
Mhm.
and they're struggling with some other physical issues. So it's always going to be the biggest thing that comes up when it comes to autism is communication.
Mm-hmm.
That is part, can be profound, or at the other end, um, what we used to call Asperger's, were
Yeah.
people that their big thing, they can communicate verbally, but they don't read the signs, so their communication is inadequate or inappropriate.
Yeah.
Somebody else is telling a joke, and they're like, "What are you talking about? I don't get it. What's happening?" Because
Yeah.
they can't read the nuances of a joke. It just doesn't make any sense to them. So their communication, and frequently they don't know how to behave in social situations, so they avoid them like the plague.
Mhm.
Right.
Now, everybody, it's not like, okay, everybody fits into a specific spot. When they say on the spectrum, that's it. Some people can have
Mhm.
it where it's really, really difficult, and they struggle even after you explain it to them and you show them and you're trying to teach them. And other people, it's like it's easier for them to get, maybe because their
Mhm.
family is more focused on, look at their face. Do you see a smile, or do you see a frown, or what are
Mhm.
they doing? Um, but that's their the one common thread in everything is the communication piece. It can be from one end of the spectrum, literally, to the other, one end of IQ to the other. It's it's all over the place, but it has those kind of typical things that stand out for wherever you're on the spectrum.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, I see and hear that term in writing, but I also hear people say, oh, so and so, yeah, they're on the spectrum. And I kind of deduced what it meant. I don't know if all the listeners and viewers tonight really understood what it meant. So thank you for explaining that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You often, many people that are higher on the spectrum actually can do quite well with other people socially because they've learned how to go with learn what cues are appropriate in that situation. And so you might have somebody that you work with where something's a little off. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe they don't quite know how to handle stuff. They over or underreact. You can't quite see what's going on. But in general, they have learned how to successfully get into work, connect with
Yeah.
people, get their work done, present their work, move through. And it has no barrier to, just like anyone else, they can have anything as a capability. Art, music, science, sports, anything, like anybody else. But that's the theme line that tends to be the issue.
Maureen, as I see time is kind of winding down here. Did you know who Jack LaLanne was?
Yes, I do. My
Do you
mom
remember
was a big fan. I do.
him? So I heard a reporter ask him years ago. He said, Jack, if you have uh, 10 seconds of all the things that you've done and think of all the things you've done and accomplished and you wanted to give somebody some advice just in a couple of words, what would you give them? And Jack LaLanne said, if it tastes good, spit it out. And I thought that was so profound. I thought that was so profound, because I used to watch his commercials with all his muscles, and he would be swimming the English Channel and doing all these great things. And so
Dragging the
I'm going to
boats.
ask
Yeah.
you, I'm going to ask you that same question. You specialize in
Oh, you're making out.
you specialize in so many different things, ADHD, depression, anxiety, positive self-talk. So if you had just a couple words and 10 seconds to give advice, to our viewers out there, what advice would you give them?
Oh boy. Before you act, know whose issue it is. That would help
Okay.
a lot. I think that keeps you out of a lot of issues that you don't need to step into.
Mhm. Before you act, know
And if it's yours,
who.
own it. Just own it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
You're welcome. Oh yeah. Sure you did.
Well, that's good. So people can appreciate now. That's what it's like when you're live, right? There's
Right.
no script here. We're just having a candid conversation. Jack, so I want to now, we'll put you in the hot seat. Is there anything you want to add to the comment or commentary before we go off?
Jack looks like he's on mute.
Is he muted?
Yeah.
There we go.
Either that or maybe he needs to turn his volume up.
See, first know the facts, right? No sound.
You need to turn your microphone on, Jack. I think it's your microphone. Is your microphone on?
Well, While Jack is coming in, I do want to say, I want to foot stomp the organizations and thank, first of all, of course, Maureen, you for taking the time. A funny story before I get into my thank yous. When I first reached out to Maureen, of course, like many of us this evening, it was late in the evening and she was working with her clients. And I think I probably came across as a bit of a solicitor. And Maureen was like, click, I got clients. I'm busy until 10 o'clock, goodbye. But then I, of course, being the persistent and resilient person, I didn't tell myself a story. I sent a nice text reintroducing myself and explaining to her who I am, and more importantly, the organizations we represented, and how through a mutual friend of her daughter's, who is also a fellow Eagles. I'll give shout out to Derek Thompson, who's my counterpart here in the DMV, one of my many counterparts. He knew that Maureen would deliver exactly what we wanted in terms of tools for your toolkit, better understanding of who you are. We didn't want to just get on and just talk about the academic piece of mental health, but we also wanted to have some application so that as you enter into the holidays, you will have some additional tools added into your toolkit that will enable you to be successful and have even more enjoyable time. And so we wanted to definitely impart those on individuals as they engage this evening. It didn't look like we had any questions. I know this is a conversation that for many, they probably don't want to have. But Maureen, as they go forward, how can people reach you? If I want to continue this conversation, you know, the Eagles brought you here this evening, as well as the Carolyn Parker Foundation. So how can someone on this call reach you post this event so that they stay connected? If they feel like they need you gave a lot of good tips, but they need a little bit more and they want some more private time to talk through some of their more individual challenges.
Sure. They can reach me through Iron Bridge Counseling 4 .org. Or I'm going to give you the office number there, which is 804-706-1111. And I already warned my receptionist what I was doing. She's like, okay, I think I got this. But you shouldn't have any problem getting through.
Do you take insurance?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Great.
And what age group do you primarily work with?
Well, now that I'm doing telehealth only, I work with middle school on up.
Okay.
So,
That's a fragile age, middle school. So thank you for what you do for those in that community. And then I also want to just offer myself, if you didn't catch that or you want to reach out to Maureen, I'm happy also to kind of put you in contact with her. You know, we just don't want anyone to feel like they're having to go it alone this holiday season and beyond, to be honest with you, because that's kind of not what, you know, the Eagles, that's not kind of who we are. We're definitely about being there for our brethren through the good and the bad. So I want to foot stomp that. We're here for you. So over to you, Jack, if you were able to get unmuted there. Jack?
No, we still can't hear you, Jack.
Can't hear you. Okay. Thank you for that. Jack may just be having some technical difficulties, but I will say on behalf of the Eagles, I know he's happy to have you join us this evening. And for all the Eagles that have joined this call tonight, I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join and support, as well as all of our general listeners and viewers. And then with that said, I wholeheartedly thank you, Maureen. Would love to have you back as we get through you know, the new year, rebranding, new year, new you. Everybody has a plethora of New Year's resolutions. I'm not a New Year's resolution person because I think by February people have forgotten them. So I wanted to line myself out the gate to be very intentional. And I love what you said, my beliefs. I was taking notes. I wrote my beliefs and my behaviors. I think that's a hashtag. It looks like some stuff is coming through the chat there. Michael, do you have something to add?
No, I just want to thank you. Well, first of all, I wanted to apologize for logging in late. When I tried to log in, my computer made me download Chrome, and yeah, it just was not. Link was not working. But definitely thank you for joining us this evening, Maureen. Pleasure meeting you. I did write down if it's yours, own it, and before you act, whose issue it is. So we'll definitely pocket those two nuggets of wisdom that you have given me. And we're very glad to have you with us this evening, and looking forward to seeing you again as a future guest.
And I want to add, so there was some compliments here. Looks like it, trying to see if it was, there we go. It looks like Colleen Ruffner said, thank you, Maureen, appreciate it. And then another person here, Janice Davies, said, thank you so much. Excellent information. Thank you so much, she said, for the presentation. So I just wanted to share the accolades as they're kind of coming in. So your time was definitely, I'm certain, very well spent this evening. So we're really appreciative. So with that said, we are going to sign off. Michael and I have enjoyed your time this evening. Again, we're here for you. If you need additional resources, you don't have to go it alone. So thank you for that, and bye-bye, and the team can stay on. We are signing off. Have an amazing holiday. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Likewise.
Thank you. Bye-bye.